Welcome to episode 8 of the Willpower podcast. My guest today is Noah Schlesinger. Noah won the CapTex Austin Triathlon this year. I also participated, and I did not finish nearly as fast as he did. Noah has a ton of brilliant insights into how he finds willpower, actionable items for the common layman, and much more. A side note, this was my first time recording a virtual podcast with the Willpower podcast. I think it went pretty seamlessly, though it was a bit shorter due to that missing level of connection that I like with in person. Regardless, I think there's tons to take from this, and I hope you enjoy. All right, Noah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what got you into triathlons?
I ran when I was a kid. I ran club in high school and then or in college. Then from there, kind of lost touch with why I started running. A roommate of mine was putting on a triathlon, like a local one, so purely just to like go there, support him, just suffer through whatever this thing was, you know. And I actually ended up really liking it, despite the fact that like I could not swim well at all. My biking was terrible, and then I was so tired from the run, like I didn't even enjoy it. So yeah, but I actually really liked it. I liked how multidisciplinary, just like one after the other after the other. It's like you got your strengths, you got your weaknesses. There's always like kind of something to be working on. So that's kind of how I got into it. It's just kind of followed him, did what he did for a while. I graduated, and then took a couple years. COVID kind of happened, so did some other stuff, but came back to it and just kind of found the love for sport again. So now I'm just like all in triathlon. I can't get enough, honestly.
Yeah. So you won first place in the Olympic distance at the CapTex here in Austin.
Yeah.
Would you say that was like your best performance you've had, or have you had any other triathlon performances that you really felt good about?
I felt good about a few, but it's kind of interesting because that was the first time I've ever won a race was in CapTex. So that was obviously pretty exciting. Getting being at the front, getting the vehicle on the run to like follow and having people cheer me on. It was very exciting. It's a finish first, and not to say that it was underwhelming by any means, because it was still very exciting. It's just that the level that I train at now, with the teammates and the coaches that I have and our ambitions, it's like I almost expected to win. So when it was kind of like heading in that direction, it was like, oh, okay, like I kind of knew this was coming. I knew where I was at, my fitness ability, and so it was super awesome to see that kind of like all unfold the way I wanted it to. But I think in terms of like being satisfied with my effort and how hard I was willing to push myself, I've had other races that have kind of like brought the best out of me, I guess.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that?
So,
like what was the difference in, so it feels like maybe there have been other races where you were like, I put it all on the line there. That was everything I possibly had. And
yeah,
this race was more of just like, I prepared. I did what I had to do. Am I getting that right?
Pretty much.
Okay. So
yeah, totally.
What was like one of those races like where you like really put everything you had into it?
Last year I did a half Ironman in Oregon, and I had broken my collarbone at the beginning of the year. So I had this long stretch of like rehabbing that, getting back into some fitness, and I was racing in the age group race. So I was like, I could feel my fitness kind of coming back together. It was like training was going really smooth. I was really eager to just get after it, and I hadn't won anything. I knew, there was going to be a pro field at the 70.3, so the age group quality of field tends to be a little bit higher. So I had a feeling I could do really well, but I wasn't sure if I could win the age group field. But that was my goal. So anyway, I swam hard, got on the bike near the front of all the age groupers, and I was pushing above where I wanted to push for the bike already. Like, I was feeling good, and I was like, maybe I'll go out kind of hard, maybe this is too hard. And then this guy comes flying past me. And this is like 5 miles into the bike ride, of this 56-mile bike ride. And for the next 40 miles, I'm just killing myself to stay with him. Just knowing that, like, if I want to try to win this race, like, I got to stay with him. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm just killing myself. Like, really happy with what I'm able to put out. Like, a lot better than I thought I would be able to in terms of, like, power numbers on the bike and the speed and everything. And I knew that, like, I was really reaching my limit. My legs were starting to go pretty lactate. And so, like, 5-10 miles from the end of the bike, I had to back off purely because, like, it was not sustainable. But I had already, at that point, just, like, blew my expectations in terms of, like, numbers, and I was a decent runner, so I was like, oh, maybe I can catch him. So I'm like, my legs are already destroyed, getting into the run, knowing that I already pushed myself really hard. So I'm like both satisfied, but still like, pretty like anxious to kind of get going and try to find this guy on the run. And I never found him, but I pushed myself really hard in that run. Like every turn, I was like, I'm gonna see him up there. So just to have this like rabbit out there somewhere, knowing that he's only like a minute up the road somewhere.
Yeah.
It got to the point where like the last mile or two, I just felt like my body was just like shutting down. Like I just couldn't give anymore, and I tried so hard, and I finished strong, came in third. It's like a time trial start, so it's hard to know,
Yeah.
where everybody is,
where you actually are.
Yeah, but I was pretty happy with myself. Like, disappointed I didn't win, happy with the podium, and just like over the moon with like coming back from the injury, being able to like just grind so hard and perform. I feel like above my ability. So yeah, that was definitely a special race.
Yeah, I think I saw you wrote somewhere about the Cap Tex race, and it sounds like you had a decent lead coming out of the bike. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess you didn't have that. Yeah, you were just like staying ahead, but there was no like neck and neck, like one other person who you're really trying to beat. It was like you had that lead that kind of, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was kind of nice. So I had been working on my swim a bunch. So like we got in the water and we started the swim. I went out hard, and I was able to come out in third.
Mm-hmm.
So right away, I know, like, okay, there's like one guy a couple minutes up who's like a phenomenal swimmer, and this other guy that like is right with me. So I had a feeling that I could outbike everybody behind me, and it's just a matter of like catching the guys up the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I caught the front of the race just after the first lap of 4, and I just thought, well, like I'll push myself pretty hard on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
Try to maneuver around all the everybody else is like the road started filling up with people.
Yep. That's when I got in there.
And try to take try to take like, whatever advantage I could. Whether it was like cornering hard or trying to like weave through people better, or whatever it was. Just cause like it was a hot day, and like I knew the run was going to be brutal no matter what. So if I could give myself the lead, then I knew I could like get my body temp under control. Like if there was someone who's like just like running me down, I could like kind of control my heart rate and everything, and kind of run with whoever I needed to. but yeah, getting a nice, I don't know, it was like maybe a minute and a half off the bike. So it was just, I didn't need to push it too hard.
Yeah. How do you strategize your training? Because I know with triathlons, typically the bike is like, the longest in terms of time. And so it's the place where you can kind of
Yeah.
improve the most. But then swimming is usually for non-swimmers, it's like the place where you can make the most improvements. So how do you balance
Mhm.
where to focus your training, where to really try and improve?
Yeah. Well, luckily I have a coach who can figure all that out for me. But ultimately, it's it's like the difference between a weakness versus a limiter. Like is this thing that I'm not great at going to limit me in the race? And it's a weakness, but like if it's not something that's going to like hurt me as much, maybe I don't need to focus on it. Whereas if it's like I'm bad at it and it's causing me a lot of like basically me just like slow down a bunch in the race relative to other people, then that's something like we got to focus on. So I do both draft legal and non-draft. So it's a mixed bag because biking, like you said, the most time of the race is on the bike. You can make up a ton of time. You can put time into people. You obviously want to be able strong enough to be able to stay in packs, all that kind of stuff. The run's super important because it's straight up, a faster runner gets you a faster time. And the swim a non-draft race is important up to an extent. But my coach and I put a big focus on just all of them because at the top level, you just got to be good at all of it. So like,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not at a place where I can say, oh, I'm a great runner. I can just kind of coast through that kind of training and just really hammer the bike and the swim. It's like I have everything that I still need to improve.
Can you explain the
We set pretty high standards too. So it's you got to balance it so that everything can improve. Sometimes it doesn't always happen that way. You have a great couple of weeks where like swimming's just phenomenal and running seems to be going backwards and vice versa. But yeah, we just try to keep pushing everything forward.
Can you explain draft and non-draft races?
Oh yeah. So non-draft is typically is always on a road bike, and when it comes to the biking portion of the race, you can draft directly behind somebody else. You get this huge benefit. They're breaking the wind. You get in their draft. They're like slipstream, and you're doing something like 20-30% less effort than what the person ahead of you is doing. So, like when it comes to when it comes to draft legal, it's very important to be in a bike group, like very important. Whereas in non-draft, you're not allowed to be right behind somebody. You have to give them some space, and you'll often be on like a time trial bike where you got those aero bars and you're kind of like outstretched in your body. So like that's the main difference. And then it's so non-draft is much more of in theory, it's more of like a time trial race, whereas draft legal is much more tactical. It's more like a really hard swim where you then get into like a pure cycling race, and then you get off and do, a running race, but it's much more like clumped together.
Okay. Interesting. So, moving slightly off the topic of tries, what day-to-day habits have you found to most increase your quality of life in whatever way you want to answer that?
Day-to-day habits. And so it's interesting because quality of life is a tough one. I've turned my whole life upside down to do something that I love. So I guess in some ways, the biggest change I've had in my life is leaving a full-time professional engineering job for a full-time professional athletic career. And I'm a lot happier now than I was then. But I stay happy by just staying very dedicated to what I'm doing, because then I can see the progress and, it's all the gratification of that. And I think the best way for me to continue to see progress and feel like I'm doing what I need to make that progress and get better is just being as regular in my day as possible. So like wake up at the same time, try to go to bed at the same time. If I'm going to have coffee, it's going to be at the same time. It's probably just going to be once, that kind of a thing. My workouts are structured. So like every day I swim at 9. I might do my second workout between like 1 and 3 or something. My next one at like 4 to 7 or something. So it's just like regularity is like super, super crucial for me.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I actually didn't realize that you had gone full time on being an athlete. That's awesome. When did that switch over happen?
Mid 2022.
Okay, so it's been
Yeah.
a few years now.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. This probably is going to tie into that, but where do you find willpower? So where do you find like the, mental resolve to go through difficult training, to get through like pre-race nerves, anything like that? Where do you find willpower to push yourself?
Pre-race nerves are tough. Yeah, no, I think it's like practice. It's funny, but it's just practice for me. Like I can't show up to a race and be like, all right, I'm gonna give my all, like just run myself into the ground, like physically, mentally, to try to get the best result. If I'm not doing that in practice, because like when too many things are hurting or too many things aren't going my way, like I'm gonna just give up. Like I just don't have it in me.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't experience those things in practice. And it's not like just in like a super hard workout. It's like being able to wake up when I really don't want to wake up, get to the pool, and then like do a hard swim when I don't want to be there. Because like when you wake up in the morning of like an Ironman race or a half Ironman race, and it starts at like 6:30, and you're up at 3:30, like you don't want to be awake and you want to go back to bed. So it takes a bit of willpower just to get up in the morning and just get going and be like, try to get yourself ready. And so, kind of ties back into the whole like regularity is like, if I just do it every day, it's like, I don't have to think about it. It's like
mm-hmm.
putting certain things on autopilot. So I'm making decisions that might take willpower to make, and just making it regular so that I don't have to think about it,
Yeah. Yeah, that seems to be a pretty I had a coach on a few earlier last week who was talking about, so she helps coaches teach their clients how to actually follow through with things, basically how to have willpower. And one of the thing she told me was that the people who have the most willpower actually don't use it the most. They don't use their willpower. And that's by doing things like what you're saying. Like you're not actively exerting willpower every time you go out for a swim. It's like, it's just built in. It's like a groove that you're in. Like, this is what I do. This is what I'm going to go do today. Yes, it's hard, but there's no like debate. There's no like forcing yourself to do it because it's just happening. So.
Right. No, it's actually funny you mentioned that because we did like as a team. Maybe I didn't explain this well, but I live like in a house with several other athletes, and we're all like living and training together like full time. So after a track session one day, we went to this massage therapist who has a whole bunch of recovery tools, and there's an ice bath there and like a sauna mat and like some other stuff. Really, really cool, really helpful, and it was like 40 degrees, the water.
Mm-hmm.
And it was freezing. We're going to get in there for like 10 minutes. And I think I said like, I was like, I've already used up all my willpower today, like at the track, like grinding at the swim in the morning, like getting in this is like, it's too much. Like I did it, but it was like definitely a lot harder than it would normally be. Like I definitely felt like I had used that, like, as a certain amount of willpower that day, I guess.
Yeah, definitely like doing the new hard thing is much more difficult than the hard thing that you're comfortable with, that you're used to.
Yeah.
What's your self-talk like? So that could be like on those difficult mornings where you're like waking up super early and you're like, fuck, I don't want to do this. or, during a
Yeah.
race where, like you were talking about, where you're really pushing yourself, what is that like?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like being in your head?
It's definitely a lot of drawing on, because those are two very different scenarios in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, the one where it's like you're working really, really hard, especially in a race, is being able to draw on previous moments where I didn't feel good. I went into a workout expecting it not to go well. And then at some point, I realized like I'm making it through the workout and it starts to go well. And so like if I'm in the race and I'm pushing really hard and I'm grinding and my legs are just burning, I'm like, well, there have been times in training where I thought I was done for. And then I finished it. It's like I kept going. So I was like, well, I'm not done yet, and I tend to have more than I think I do. So it's just reminding myself, like, sometimes it's getting myself to remember a specific workout. And the talk specifically is like, you've done this before. Like, it doesn't have to feel good to go well.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. And that'll help me a lot, or it's reframing it. So like not thinking about the effort, thinking about the race, being like, all right, I got to get up there. Doesn't matter how much it hurts. Like that's the race. I need to be there. So, I think in that scenario, it's a little bit of basically like calming myself down
Mm-hmm.
and just like being able to refocus. But getting up in the morning when things suck, it's like, well, one, if I don't do this, then like, why am I even here?
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be like a full-time athlete, wake up to go to bed needs to be like decisions made to like further my career. And so if I'm making as simple as like, oh, I'll just go swim later, like I'll just be lazy, it's fine. Or just like not swim. I don't think I've ever made that decision, but it's because I can tell myself I'm here for a reason. I need to be able to do this.
Yeah. So there is that like mission, that purpose behind all of it, which is like,
Yeah.
there's that thing I'm going for. And like you said, you're there to do that, to go for that purpose.
Yeah.
And yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
like
And it's definitely something that you build over time. Like when I was working as an engineer and trying to train, there were definitely times where I like quit mid workout, I skipped a workout, like I'm exhausted and it's like goals aren't that big, motivation's not that high. My focus isn't fully on triathlon, so like, it's kind of like it's I guess the like the purpose or the goal or whatever it is. I'm not driven enough for it. Whereas now it's like I'm all in and I'm super driven.
Yeah.
It's totally different.
It almost feels to me like you wrapped your identity in it as well.
Definitely.
Like this is who you are now. Like you're not an engineer anymore. You are a professional full-time athlete. This is what you do.
Yep. Yep.
I could see where that would tie in. I just wanted to say one other thing that applies to like what you're saying about feeling good in the moment. And I think that applies like everywhere in life outside of just like physical pain in training, which is like you don't always have to feel good and you don't always have to listen to how you feel. Like it's a good thing to be aware of it, but that doesn't mean blindly listen. Like if you're emotionally having a bad day, it doesn't mean you have to just like follow along. Or if you like feel like you want to eat, that doesn't mean you have to go eat. Like it's all that ties in. And being able to ride those things out, calm yourself, and then stick to what like that thing that you really wanted to do. I mean, that's a big piece of willpower. All right, Noah, when have you failed in the past and how, if at all, did you learn from it?
Well, I failed last weekend. I did a 70.3 up in Mont Tremblant. It's part of this Pro Series race. So you have like all the professional Ironman and half Ironman races around the world that are, professional. So they're already a level above. And then Ironman, the company goes in and selects several of them to put a whole bunch of weight on each race, and so you get a certain scoring for them. The prize money's better, that kind of a thing. So I went up and did. It was both my first pro race and one of those races, so it's pretty competitive. And there was like 60 something people set to start. So it's supposed to be super hard. And I didn't have the best prep. I knew that going into it. Because I was half there for the experience, knowing I was about to get my butt handed to me. But I really wanted to have a good race. So I woke up pretty determined, got everything set up, started the race, started the swim very well, had a great start, got towards the front of the race, and then for the rest of the swim, pretty much I was just moving backwards. Like, it was really tough. I don't know if I went out too hard. My swim stroke was just kind of falling apart. The weather was getting pretty freaking bad. It was like torrential downpour and like winds, and it was not a good day to be outside. But mentally, I was like, man, I was in such a good position, and I'm just falling back so fast. And I got on the bike. I was kind of down, It's like, I had that, that front of the race mentality, and I kind of lost it. But I had a plan with my coach, which was, I don't have the fitness to win this race. I probably don't have the fitness to come in like top 10. So I need to have a goal that isn't purely centered around my like finishing place. And so for me, it was like, okay, how long can I stay towards the front, and how long can I push with the top people, and where do I stand? So I pushed really hard on the bike, really hard. I was catching people. And then I never finished the bike. Like an hour into it, my like left quad started cramping real bad. Like 15 minutes later, my right quad started cramping, and then my glutes went, and like there were some hills towards the end, and I couldn't even push the pedals around anymore. It was pretty miserable, but it was a huge learning experience for several reasons. One, I was not feeling good that day, so it was another one of those, like, I was able to push myself mentally, reassuring myself that like just because I'm not feeling good doesn't mean I can't perform. So there were some positives there. Like, my swim start was good. My bike numbers were really good. I was able to navigate the field okay. But ultimately, like, it was a DNF. Like, I didn't finish the race, and my legs blew up, and I messed up my nutrition. I messed up my prep. I had traveled across the continent twice just before the race. Like, it was definitely some things to learn from. And as disappointing as it is, I think because I feel like I'm towards the beginning of my pro career, not that I can just like, throw that result away and forget about it. Like, I want to remember it, have that in my mind when I'm training, and be like, I don't want to experience that again. But not let it carry more weight than it needs to. So trying to be like, all right, let's get back to training. Whether I won or lost or didn't finish, like, it's not like my fitness has changed. It's not like me as an athlete has changed. So just trying to like experience the negative feelings, but being able to like put it past me as quickly as I can, and just kind of, get on with it again.
Yeah. So what could you have done differently in either the lead up or race day? What were your big takeaways?
I think definitely less travel beforehand. Like I said, I went from the East Coast, the United States East Coast, to the West Coast to watch my brother graduate, which I was set on doing, knowing that it could hinder my race. And then I flew back to the East Coast to Montreal, where I then drove to the race. So I was like underslept, I was underfueled, I was pretty tired. And this is all like 3 days before the race. So training hadn't gone super well. So, an obvious thing would just be like, stay home, just train, just stay in my routine, and like for a lot longer. Fuel up better, so eat more, drink more. And yeah, I mean, it was going to be a tough day no matter what. So, but yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is the prep really matters.
Yeah. We talked a little bit earlier about, but how much different is your life in terms of like the way you see this like regularity and this kind of discipline of, doing the same things every day? How much has that changed since, your life as an engineer?
um, well, it's when you have a full-time job that has structured hours, that's going to be the same. So like
Mm-hmm.
that was set for me. Now I get to set it more optimally, and make adjustments as I need to. So I'd say the regularity aspect, I'm much more consistent with it now. And I think part of it is because I care more. Like I want it. I want not just because I care more, but I also know like where I'm headed in this sport. I can only get there if I make a ton of decisions correctly. Whereas before, if I came home from work and I was supposed to go for a 2-hour bike ride and I was exhausted and I didn't feel like it, maybe I just get on the bike for half an hour, get off, call it a day, get some food, hang out with some friends. Like it wasn't as important to me. And I think just, yeah, I guess the importance of, or the value I place on my athletic performance is so much higher now, that the main difference is when I'm not doing things that I'm supposed to be doing now, I feel the repercussions very quickly. And before, because I wasn't as concerned with my performance, if I stayed up too late, if I ate too much or didn't eat enough or whatever it was, the like negative consequences weren't as bad because I wasn't taking it as seriously anyway. So it was harder to notice. I don't know.
How did you decide that this was your thing? Like that this was what you were going to do full time? What was that decision like?
Yeah. I don't know. It started becoming an obsession. Really. Like I graduated in 2020, so COVID, just shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
But right before COVID shut everything down, I started my senior year in college. Had interviewed, and so I knew I was gonna start working when I graduated. But around that time, I'd also started triathlon. I got super into it and started doing pretty well pretty quick. And then when COVID happened, and I was like, all right, well, there's no races, there's like no training. Our collegiate nationals was canceled and all that stuff. But it was always kind of at the back of my mind, like I still want to pursue this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, a year into working, I had started training again, and I'd swim in the morning, and then I'd just be like trying to figure out every which way that I could leave work early or take a long lunch so I could go work out. Like it was always on my mind. Like all I wanted to do every day was train. I actually left that job at the end of 2021, took a data science course because I wanted a remote job that I could train more easily around. Because I don't know, engineering is always going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
like your athletic potential is very much so tied to your age. So like if you're going to make the decision to go for it, you got to go for it. You can't wait. So ultimately time was a bit of a factor, like pushing me in that direction. But yeah, I finished the data science course, decided I don't know. I'll come back to that too, but I got to go pursue this thing. So yeah.
Yeah. So do you think is that what your life is going to be like after this whole journey of?
I don't know. Cause I've been doing this for like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I hope to have a career longer than that. And so I think so much can change. I think, cause I also just love the community, the triathlon community. I'm starting to train like some family members to do triathlon, and they like it, and it's bringing them a whole bunch of joy being able to like go out and train and run and bike and swim and feel, healthy and stuff. So I think there might be a space for me in the fitness industry somewhere. It might also tie right back into engineering because I do like sciences. So yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say.
There's some hybrid there for you. I'm certain of it.
Yeah,
Creating
definitely.
some
Definitely.
technology around that. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any advice for people who are, because basically what I'm seeing is like you are so focused on this idea, this mission of being, the best athlete you can be. And your full life is dedicated to that. Do you have advice for people who don't have that thing? Like, how do you find that?
It's really hard because I think it's a bit of a personality thing. Um, I've gone through rough patches, like through college too, where I become obsessed with something because I just dive right into it. Like I like it, so I'm gonna like look, you know, dive deep, maybe too deep into it and get distracted by other things, which is why I was like, I'm gonna put myself in a house surrounded by professional athletes, and I see a coach every day, multiple times a day, just like stuck in that environment because I won't get distracted. As long as I stay focused, like I know I'll just like I'll give it my all. Um, but that's my personality, and I know other people who have tried this path, and it hasn't been for them, not because they weren't willing to put in the work, but because they needed more of a balance in their life. Um, so I guess the best advice I'd give is like figure out what kind of person you are and what you need. Because some people will love to have like, all right, this part of my day I'm thinking about like work, like I love my work, I like what I do, or I don't love it, but like it's good enough for now, and I get to go home. I get to go like pursue something else, but like they like to have like sectioned off things. Um, I I don't, like I said, when I was at work I could only think about this. So that doesn't work for me. But some people like to be able to talk to people, like coworkers who don't care at all about triathlon. They love that separation. Like they don't want to spend all day thinking about their workouts and stressing over what they have to do later. It's like, let me go be with people in an environment that's like, all right, let's talk about literally anything else. Like they don't care anyway. Like it's easy. Um, so I think figuring out what kind of person you are first and what you need. Because, yeah, I don't think pursuing something 100% is for everyone. I think it's good to know to have a balance. Some people like to have, their hands in a lot of different areas and have a book group, have a running group that they go with, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, there is certainly
It's so individual.
there are a lot of people. Someone I talked to just recently, where it was like they have their hobbies, and it's almost like they don't want to put too much pressure on their hobby. They're like, I'm happy with how it is. I don't want that to become my life. I want to keep it as this like thing I do outside of work. That's just for fun. So certainly
Right.
that's a very good point. It's like, what kind of person are you? What, you know,
Yeah.
what do you think people get wrong about motivation?
Oh. Um, I think tying motivation to a positive feeling can be a bad thing. Um, like, or chasing motivation even, because I do that sometimes too. Like I definitely have the desire. Like I don't want to go outside, um, and you know bike in the rain for the next 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. So I can bike inside. I have like a portable trainer set up so I can bike inside. And finding a way to like you can create small motivators. Like I don't want to do this bike ride at all, but if I do it inside, I can watch a movie. Um, so not fully tied to like the motivation isn't to do the activity maybe, but it's tied to it so you can still get the activity done. Is like one way of thinking about it, but it still might not feel good, but it'll get you to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Motivation gets you started, but it's definitely not there the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And when things aren't going well, it's hard to find.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery still to me, so I don't know if I can give good advice.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Do you use that technique often? I forget, there's a name for it, but where you are kind of build on things. Like it's like, oh, I'm going to go for a run, but I'm going to have a audiobook that I want to listen to, or I have music that I only listen to when I run. Is that a regular thing that you do?
Yeah, I'd say so. It's like the idea of going for a run, a ride, or a swim isn't always the most appealing to me, but I can like quickly, because I do it every day,
mm-hmm.
I can like quickly remember a part of a recent activity that I did enjoy. Like there's this bike route that I do, and there's this descent that we just hammer down, and it's pretty fun. The scenery is really nice. Getting out to that point, leaving where we live and biking over there isn't always the nicest. But just reminding me, like, oh, like when I'm on my ride, I'll get to enjoy that. So, it kind of puts me in a better state of mind. Yeah, same thing with the run and the swim. And I don't know. I think it's a weird thing. I think it's both like obviously it's hard to do the activity every single day, but the luxury of it is kind of like what we said before with regularity. Is like if you're not motivated, the decision to not do it doesn't come quickly because it's natural to kind of do it anyway. So, but yeah, I definitely do. Sometimes I'll run with music. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'll listen to an audiobook. Mm-hmm. When it's freezing pouring rain outside, and like in the off season especially, and I go home to Oregon, and I don't want to run. Like it's just awful, like weather. I'll go find a trail and I'll make it worse. Like somehow by getting extra muddy and wet and running extra slow because it's on like hard terrain, it's like I'm choosing now to make it bad. I'm not like letting the weather choose for me. I'm now making the decision. So like it kind of flips it a little bit. So I feel like I'm in control, but yeah, there's a whole bunch of examples. I mean, I'll throw on like running tights and a long sleeve and a beanie and hat, gloves and stuff, and for a run that's like only a little bit cold, but like it gets me out the door, and then I spend the rest of the run just like sweating like a pig. But like I got started, and like that's all that that's all that matters.
Yeah. So you either make it much worse or a little bit better. But I do see what you're saying about like you're like this is bad, but I'm deciding that it's bad. It's because I'm doing it. It's not happening to me.
Kind of, yeah. You're kind of like laughing at your pain in a way.
Yeah. What is something you're struggling with right now?
Ooh. I think for me, my Achilles heel, so to speak, is my weight. I wouldn't consider myself an overweight person by like normal healthy standards, mm-hmm. per se, but like in the world of endurance sports, the leaner, the lower the weight, the faster you can go. Obviously, as long as you're still healthy and like can perform and everything. So the thing I'm struggling the most with right now is trying to lose. And I know this is like a universal thing, It's like I want to lose fit and get fitter, lose weight and get fitter at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, okay, if you eat less food, you can try to lose weight, but if you're trying to work out more, you have to fuel for those workouts. So if I ever have a decision, it's like I'm always going to fuel, like always got to make sure I'm eating enough to sustain the workouts and everything. So sometimes that means I gain a little bit of weight, but I get to, my body can absorb all the training, which is so important. At some point, I'm going to have to figure that out. For now, year after year after year, the number of hours I train every week continue to go up. So I started at like 18 to 20 hours a week. Now I'm at like 22, 23 hours a week. So the idea is hopefully once I start training more and more and more, my body will slowly, naturally adapt. And I've seen inklings of that when I've had really consistent high volume training, and it's been awesome. But yeah, I think for me that's my biggest hurdle is to basically just be able to lose weight.
Yeah. So is it like a thing where you lose weight and then you gain it back because you're training so much and, you know, eating a lot, or is it just you're constantly a little bit above where you want to be?
Yeah, definitely the second. I'm definitely too heavy for proper competition. Yeah, like, you know, weight can naturally fluctuate through higher and lower training periods, through race season, through the off season, that kind of thing too. But those fluctuations should happen for me at a lower weight range than where I am now.
Gotcha. Do you have a plan for like going forward for this?
Yeah, I mean, my plans, and it's been working. It's still a struggle. I mean, I know everybody struggles with weight to some extent, but yeah, my plan is pretty much just track what I eat more and more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen weight, the issue of weight in professional endurance sports, like, cause people to leave the sport because it's so harmful in the mind to constantly feel like awful because you're not eating enough. So you're always tired, you're getting injured or whatever it is, or you have this like huge, just like big doubt, self-confidence issue, self-esteem, because you feel like you're too heavy for your sport, and you go to extremes to try to correct it, and obviously that's not going to go well. So your training takes a hit for so long that you're like, I'm done, this is too hard. So yeah, for me, the importance of weight, because I'm still early enough on my career, and truly just training consistency is so important that if I'm an extra 5 or 10 pounds heavy, I can still perform pretty well, and I can still train really well. And it's not like it's limiting me from, having like phenomenal performances or anything. So once it becomes a limiter, kind of like we were saying, like a weakness versus limiter, once it becomes a true limiter, then I'll have to like take a harder look at it. But because I've been able to make some small bits of progress here and there, just from tracking, trying to eat healthy, trying to just like follow what I'm eating a little bit better, has so far been working.
Yeah. I've had obviously I'm not even an athlete, but I've done like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I did that triathlon. I've done a few marathons, but I definitely know the feeling of being undernourished, of like not having enough calories and then having to do whatever training. Like I remember being in a jiu-jitsu class and being like so tired and being like, I hate this so much. And that, I could definitely see where, like, especially being a professional, like that is going to take its toll on your results, on your ability to perform at the highest level.
Yeah.
What's something you're excited about?
Well, I mean, all I think about is my training and my triathlon career all the time. So um, I'm excited for that. Like I've made huge strides in my swim lately. So I have a race coming up in 2 weeks. It'll be my first professional draft legal race. So the swim start's super important. Getting in a group on the bike is super important, and I'm just excited to see how I do.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, Noah.
It's just I don't know. It's pretty simple. I live a pretty mundane life, so like the exciting bits are just like the races. Like I as much as it causes me, anxiety and I get a bunch of nerves and stuff before races, it's like I also just enjoy it so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's all my work. It's just straight into one of those.
That's what you're here for.
Yeah.
All right, Noah Schlesinger. Noah, where can people find out more about you?
We can go to my Instagram, which is just noah.schlesinger. It's my handle. You can look at my website. I built a website. It's noahschlesinger.com. It's not anything fancy because I only took a short course in data science. I don't know that much coding. But it has a little bit about me. Yeah, pretty much those places.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for coming on, Noah. I think a lot of people will take a lot
Thanks for
from
having
this.
me. This was fun.
Amazing. All right. Bye, everybody.